Ladies and gentlemen, the Smothers Brothers.
Thank you very much. My brother and I would like to thank the American Comedic Academy of Comedy Awards Selection Committee and the Board of Trustees who make this occasion so wonderful. Tonight marks the golden anniversary of the Hall of Fame, 50 years of honoring the comedy greats.
The Comedy Hall of Fame is not 50 years old.
It's the golden anniversary of the Comedy Hall of Fame.
It's no, just forget it. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, this is the second annual Hall of Fame event. This is. And we would like to acknowledge one of the inductees from last year's program,
Mr. Jonathan Winters.
Thank you very much. I'd like to talk just cover a brief little thing about the award. Everybody's talked about the individuals, and rightfully so. But nobody has really looked at the award. I did this to my wife. I said, look at the award. It's like a wonderful spear, you know, it's a crystal thing. I just want to, those people who are being inducted this evening, don't think it's a joke. Don't put it up in the attic. If you have an attic, don't put it up there. It'll just gather dust. A rat will try to get at it or something. Quake will destroy it. Put it in your living room. Or if you're an out-of-the-work actor in a Winnebago, put it in some section of the Winnebago. At any rate, put it where they can see it and point to it and say, damn it, I'm in the Hall of Fame, you know, for a comic. I'm very proud of my award. I haven't received many, but I got a couple of them, damn it, and it's a gas. I don't thank Mom or Dad. They said I wouldn't cut it. You know that wonderful thing about Mom and Dad believing in you? Forget it, they didn't believe in me. I could have put them down when they were 40. But I didn't. Shovels at Sears were expensive in those days. Above all, don't put it in the kitchen. I'll tell you why. Many of us have a cat, you know. We got one. And we don't have a dog, but that's another story. We fell on hard times a few years ago. Rascal's collar's there, though. At any rate, a kitty thinks it's a pole. You know, they'll scratch that thing. It's not a pole. Crystal. And if he can't get a little action that way, he'll turn around and spray it. And the thing turns amber. Thank you.
I don't think many of you know this, but over 30 million visitors have toured the Hall of Fame last year.
That's not
and
true.
Even more are expected this coming year.
That's not true. That's not true, Tom.
A lot of it's true. And all of tonight's inductees have agreed to make weekend appearances at the Hall of Fame Theater for the rest of their natural lives.
That's not true either.
A lot of it's true.
None of the inductees are obligated
They're obligated to get the award to make
no, they're obligated to
There's an open mic night, and I know that on Thursday nights, I know Bob Hope will show up. He likes to do that.
No, Tommy, none of them are going to do that. And another thing, how many did you say appeared last year?
I said at the Hall of Fame, the actual Hall of Fame, I said it was 30 million visitors.
Are you sure the figure is correct? 30 million?
Absolutely, 30 million
That's
visitors.
more than went to Disney World.
Amazing, isn't it? Many of the all-time comedy greats, including Jimmy Durante, Lucille Ball, and Jack Benny, are enshrined in the Hall of Fame, actually entombed there, and it's very difficult to get in and impossible to get out. It's a beautiful building, it has a nice cafeteria. If you order pie, they throw it in your face.
I mean, none of that's true. No, none of it's true.
A lot of it's true.
None of it is true.
Be that as it may, it's not important.
No,
what is important is the Hall of Fame.
What is important is why we're here. And ladies and gentlemen, we're here to honor George Carlin. And you can't talk about George Carlin without mentioning the famous case where George tried to educate us about the 7 words that couldn't be used on television.
What 7 words you couldn't? What 7 words?
There was just 7 words. In his album, the Class Clown entered territory that no one had ever explored.
What are these 7 words?
Just 7 words, Tom. There were 7 words.
I was just wondering what the 7 words.
One of George's famous characters also was the hippy dippy weatherman.
Well, it was one of the words you couldn't say.
George Carlin joined up with straight man Jack Burns for also a successful stint as a comedy team.
Well, was it? Was it?
Yes, it was, Tommy. And it's still not, it cannot be said on television today.
Oh,
Ladies and gentlemen, now let's take a look at George Carlin.
I have certain rules I live by. My first rule, I don't believe anything the government tells me. Nothing. 0.
George was the son of a public speaker, and from the age of 2 was raised in Harlem by his mother, who he says had a great influence on his life.
She could come home from a bus ride and do 7 characters on the bus and tell you a terrific story with a punchline.
George used these skills to get the attention and approval of his friends. But friends could not make up for the absence of his mother at home, and George turned to the radio for companionship.
There were shows like Fibber McGee, which was comedy, shows that were what you'd call situation comedies on radio. And they had these families and these small towns and the sense of family and community. And that was my sort of extended imaginary family. That's what I belonged to. Radio was a way for me to have some people to hold on to.
So it is no wonder that when he quit school after the 9th grade and joined the United States Air Force, his first job was that of a disc jockey. This fulfilled phase 1 of the master plan for his life, which he had drawn up at the age of 11. Following these blueprints, he eventually teamed up with newsman straight man Jack Burns and became a comedian. The team was very successful, and a few years later, George was ready to move on to the next phase of his plan, television.
See, my dream was to be like a Danny Kaye or a Bob Hope or a Red Skelton, to be in the movies and be funny. And in order to get into sitcoms or movies and be this kind of comic actor that I wanted to be, I figured, I've got to play their game. I've got to be one of their guys. I've got to go along to get along. So I did a sort of, I think, of a superficial comedy. I think it was good, and I think it made some good points along the way, but compared to what I was sort of feeling in here, it was a bit skimming on the surface.
In the late 60s, George felt that he needed to move in a new direction.
I began to be more true to myself in my material. I let my hair grow, I let my beard grow, and I realized in the beginning of that process that I was entertaining the wrong people. I was entertaining the mothers and fathers of the people I really had sympathy for, which was the youth culture of the time. It was just a thing that I had to return to the guy underneath the suit and the tie.
Determined to do so, George became more outspoken and more political.
I really haven't seen this many people in one place since they took the group photographs of all the criminals and lawbreakers in the Ronald Reagan administration. Another thing you got to remember, this is the group of people who were elected with the help of the moral majority. Elected with the help of the moral majority and the Teamsters Union. That's a good combination. Organized religion and organized crime working together to help build a better America.
George Carlin has given new meaning to the phrase anti-establishment. His unrestrained criticism of bureaucracy received worldwide attention in 1972 when his routine about the 7 dirty words led to his arrest in Milwaukee. But rather than stopping him, this only provided him with choice material for his stand-up routine.
The FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, decided all by itself that radio and television were the only 2 parts of American life not protected by the free speech provisions of the First Amendment to the Constitution. I'd like to repeat that because it sounds vaguely important. The FCC, an appointed body, not elected, answerable only to the president, decided on its own that radio and television were the only two parts of American life not protected by the First Amendment to the Constitution. And why did they decide that? Because they got a letter from a minister in Mississippi. A Reverend Donald Wildman in Mississippi heard something on the radio that he didn't like. Well, Reverend, did anyone ever tell you there are two knobs on the radio? Of course, I'm sure the Reverend isn't that comfortable with anything that has two knobs on it. But hey, Reverend, there are two knobs on the radio. One of them turns the radio off, and the other one changes the station. Imagine that, Reverend. You can actually change the station. It's called freedom of choice, and it's one of the principles this country was founded upon. Look it up in the library, Reverend, if you have any of them left when you finish burning all the books.
Despite the controversy surrounding his new style of comedy, George's popularity escalated far beyond the youth of America. He became a favorite guest on many television shows.
Well, this next one, George Carlin, I like to see a lot because he's really creative and really unique and toggles your brain.
Well, George?
Yeah.
How are things in general?
Pretty good. I feel great these days. I'm showering with new zest, and I have none of that sticky film anymore.
He was the first host of Saturday Night Live.
There's a good example, a better example of our kind of self-centeredness when it comes to God. When we put a statue of Jesus on the dashboard, instead of having him looking out and watching for traffic, which is what he should be doing, we have him watching us drive. Hey! Watch this, Jesus, left turn! Don't worry, the universe is in balance because Jesus has a statue of a middle-class American hypocrite on his dashboard, so
He has appeared in a number of motion pictures and makes children laugh as Mr. Conductor in PBS's Shining Time station.
George just doesn't push the envelope. He opens it, rips it apart, stomps on it, burns it, then smokes it. He's most at home on stage, where he uses his comedy as a tool to educate, manipulate, and entertain us all. And when he explains his frustration with television journalism and tabloid news shows, he strikes a chord in all of us.
I watch television news for one thing and one thing only: entertainment. That's all I want from the news: entertainment. You know my favorite thing on television? Bad news. Bad news and disasters and accidents and catastrophes. I want to see some explosions and fires. I want to see blowing up and bodies flying around. I want to see people. I want to know there's some guy running through the Kmart with an automatic weapon firing at the clerks. I want to see thousands of people in the street killing policemen. I want to hear about a nuclear meltdown. I want to know the stock market dropped 2,000 points in one day. I want to see people under pressure. Sirens, flames, smoke, bodies, graves being filled, parents weeping, exciting. My kind of TV. I just want some entertainment. It's just the kind of guy I am. It's the kind of guy I am. You know what I love the most? When big chunks of concrete and fiery wood are falling out of the sky and people are running around trying to get out of the way. Exciting. That's why I watch auto racing. That's the only reason I watch auto racing. I'm waiting for some accidents, man. I want to see some cars on fire. I don't care about a bunch of redneck jack driving 500 miles in a circle. 500 miles in a circle? Children can do that, for sakes. Doesn't impress me. I want to see some schmuck with his hair on fire running around punching his own head, trying to put it out.
In addition to his stage performances and television specials, George entertains us every week in his own sitcom.
Hey, listen, don't you watch Matlock? Listen, don't you understand what's... Huh? What? My credit cards. Nothing wrong with my credit card. Oh, the charges. Wait. When am I supposed to... And where did I make these alleged purchases? No. The complete name of that place is the Pussycat All-Nude Sex Act Peep Show Massage Parlor and Discount Warehouse. I do my shopping there. No, well, I've rented a few videos. I've never actually purchased any mechanical devices, attachments, or electrical equipment. Yeah, listen, why don't you just send me a list of these charges, and I'll check off the ones that didn't cause severe chafing. Okay, goodbye. I can't believe it, Miles. I got horny talking to that guy.
George Carlin has reached the top by constantly pushing the limits, challenging his audience, and risking disapproval. And in doing so, he has gained the respect of us all. because whatever the consequences, he has always remained true to himself.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. George Carlin.
Thank you very much. About 2 years ago, when George Schlatter first told me about his idea for a Comedy Hall of Fame, I said to him, George, this is the kind of thing comedians should be making fun of. I mean, a Hall of Fame for people whose job it is to ridicule and make fun of others. So this year, when I got a call, and they told me they actually wanted to induct me into this Hall of Fame, I thought, what a fine idea. What a fine idea, and what an interesting concept. A Hall of Fame to honor those of us who ridicule and make fun of others. So, having done my share of ridicule, I would rather use this occasion to thank a few people. And first of all, the comedians who inspired me, especially beginning with the radio comedians, almost all of them, but in particular, Henry Morgan, Fred Allen, and Spike Jones. All of these names are important to me. I'm going to say them slowly. You don't have to acknowledge them all at the moment if you don't want, but they all mean something to me. In the movies, the Marx Brothers, the Ritz Brothers, Danny Kaye, Bob Hope, Red Skelton, Martin and Lewis. On television, Sid Caesar, Ernie Kovacs, Steve Allen, and Red Buttons. And I certainly can't forget Bob and Ray, Stan Freberg, and Mad Comics. Then, that was the childhood set. Then there was my second set of inspirations, the stand-up comedians of the 1950s, the ones who turned comedy around and changed it forever. People who opened doors for people like me and Richard. Lenny Bruce, Mort Saul, Shelley Berman, Jonathan Winters, Nichols and May, Dick Gregory, Bob Newhart, and the great, great, great Lord Buckley. Now, each of the comedians I've mentioned was important to me. Each one of them showed me something a little different about comedy, something that I needed to know, and I thank them all for that. I also want to thank the man who was my comedy partner when I began my career, Jack Burns, formerly of the exciting young comedy team Burns and Carlin. And I had 2 great years with Jack, and he taught me quite a few things as well, most of which are better left unreported. But during those 2 years, I met the other person whom I must thank. I've never had the opportunity to make this kind of speech, so this is long overdue. I met my wife, Brenda, 35 years ago in a nightclub in Dayton, Ohio. And the second thing that attracted me to her was her sense of humor. And she has taken every step of this trip with me. In the beginning, she sat in the back of those bad nightclubs and had to watch my second show when the 12 people in the audience had already seen my first show, and I was forced to do the B material. She gave birth to our miraculous daughter, Kelly, who once slept on the stage right near me all through a show I did in a college in Georgia. She was 9 years old. Kelly, not Brenda. And then in 1970, when I discovered I had to follow my heart and go from a suit and tie to a beard and jeans and take a pay cut of about 80%, Brenda never blinked, even though it meant walking away from the purchase of our very first home, which was in escrow at the time. And you know what she said? When I told her what I wanted to do, she said, "I'm gonna make up your new press kit." She's the best I could ever have wished for. So, Brenda, thank you. Thank you. And Brenda, as they say on these occasions, half of this belongs to you. And I promise you, later on, when we sell this thing, I'll split the money with you. Thanks, everybody, very, very much. Thank you.
Bob Hope is next when he is inducted into the Comedy Hall of Fame.